The state avoiding easy disposal to encourage reuse, recycling up the hierarchy. But in really simple terms, now that I know better what you're talking about, that a maximum of 1 day's exposure in each ward cycled round, times have changed from the community skips a dozen years ago, when perhaps it was thought useful and good for the public to have a bin into which they could throw everything they can dispose of. Do you want me to wait?
No, obviously.
To bin everything into it. As the report does recognise, times have moved on, and rightly so, as we've all become much more environmentally aware and conscious. So what can actually be put into these bins is essentially limited to bulky waste. Unless you're a very strong person living next to where they place one of these bins, you're going to have to transport it. Apart from the concerns that Stephen so rightly pointed out, what if you get there and you can't get it in? What I really don't understand is why you want to spend £45,000, and we strongly believe that's only scratching at the surface of the cost of this crazy scheme. If you've got that bulky item in your car, we've got a perfectly serviceable Hampshire County Council run and manned and overseen system here, the recycling centres, where you can book an appointment, you can be sure that your waste will be dealt with. What advantage are you providing, not just to the individuals, but to the community, where they're now going to have to suffer having a bin every time that you put one out on a Saturday? I just don't see the logic. What gain you're going to achieve? I think it will drive up fly tipping, not reduce it, when people get disappointed when they get there. And no matter how well we communicate, they'll turn up with goods that are not acceptable. Far less worrying about if the bin's been full. Where's that going to end up? I just don't believe this has been thought through properly. It's not looked at human nature, how they respond to disappointments, and what it certainly isn't is compatible with the gym worms. They have clearly put in there, they recognise that local councils may make local decisions, but they have equally clearly said that if costs arise because of local decisions outside the scope of it, then those costs will be borne by the council. So even when you do extend your costings to cover the points we've raised this evening, I just fear that round the corner we're going to see even greater costs thrust upon us as the whole of the county moves in the opposite direction to this. They'll be moving in step with Project Integra and the gym worms. We will be out on our own, and we will suffer, and our residents will suffer. If they've got the bulky good in the back of their car to go to these currently fictitious skips, they can go to the tip and be dealt with by a professional outfit, which won't cost us any more.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Fred.
Thank you. Looking at your conclusion, 5.1, your last line says the service will supplement the current disposal services Gosport Borough Council and Hampshire County Council supply. Well, having heard from Stephen, you've heard that this will not exactly complement or supplement. It will cause friction, it will cause problems. It's ill thought out, it isn't fully costed, and it's just a fickle thing that you have used during the election campaign, right, when it hasn't even been thought out fully or financed. The officers admitted they haven't got exact figures. You know, this is absolutely crazy.
Any other speakers? Lord. But you don't mind if I call people Christian names and call them?
No, it's no problem.
Just briefly, and I'm going to talk in fairly simple terms as opposed to carrying on about various different bits of legislation and the Joint Municipal Waste Management Scheme. This is something that residents have asked us to bring back, and this is something that we are committed to bring back, and something that we believe will achieve the aims that it sets out to achieve. The other thing, when we're talking in simple terms, with regard to our current waste and record of recycling, as Councillor Shedden said, we have the 8th or 9th, I believe, worst recycling in the country. And I get every day people telling me that they go to Asda and they buy some grapes, and on that grapes, on that little plastic thing that you put those grapes in, it says 100% recyclable. We can't put that in our recycle bins under this current scheme. It's it's the wrong type of plastic. I paid for waste myself via series to be collected from my business, and I can put that in my dry recycling, but we can't via the system that we use here. I could put the milk bottle lid in on my recycling, which we can't via this. And ever since I've been on the council, and Graham and Crawl can back me up on this, I've been banging on about our recycling in this town, and it hasn't got any better. I don't believe it's got any better at all. In fact, it's just, you can't do this, you can't do that. We need to find ways to make it easier for people to dispose of their rubbish properly, and I'm convinced this scheme will help with that. Thank you.
If I may, Hampshire County Council are changing the way the MRFs and the energy recovery facilities work to improve and take more products. That takes time to do. They are committed to doing that, so that, you know, we hope we will get glass recycling in our commingled and one third. We hope we'll be able to take everything. Sorry.
If there's only both coming back now, I'll be generous one more time. Steve first thing.
It was two specific points that I was going to address. One is the quoted figure of knife wash recycling has changed significantly. It's a great shame that now Mr. Peeler and Mr. Ricketts is here, because they will tell you what the real position of the recycling is. But equally, you have to take into account the total waste management, and our reduction on landfill has absolutely dropped out. So in the total hierarchy, we're in a far better position than I would suggest. The second point I would make was, I hear exactly what you said, Bob, about the residents want the skips back. That's not what you're giving them. Those days are long gone. The easy skip when you can dump everything in it and someone else will sort your waste out, which is what they had before, simply isn't legal these days, and it's absolutely not what you're offering. You're offering them something that's very specific, very time limited, bulky waste only, and that's going to be the problem. And the bulky waste disposal doesn't even comply with the waste management system. It will be impossible to guarantee without sorting that the bulky waste isn't internally contaminated. It will need sorting. And all the other things that the residents enjoyed before, when you didn't have to bother about sorting, recycling, reusing, upscaling, which is what should be done now for environmental reasons, simply isn't going to be allowed. And rightly not going to be allowed, but you're not bringing back what you had before. This is a new, odd thing, which is filling a niche that's already covered by bulky waste that has to be transported to the residents. The waste recycling centre can already deal with that. This will add nothing.
I'm Stephen, then
I'll be very brief, Chairman. That just to help Councillor Highlands out, because what he was saying has, of course, absolutely nothing to do with this report at all. But it was still very, very important points, but it's irrelevant to this. Just to clarify that the Environment Act 2021 does cover many of the concerns that you raised about the sort of things that can be recycled, and of course the responsibilities and onus that's going to be placed on local authorities. And that is coming, that legislation's in place, but the instructions are coming for all councils across the country, whether we like it or not. Curbside collection, separation of dry waste materials, and of course the deposit return schemes, and so on and so forth, all in the legislation. So you won't have to wait very long, Councillor Highlands. It's already been passed in law last year. So when it does come in, just remember that when you claim the credit for it, it was already done a year ago.
thank you. If there's no other speakers,
Because I'll sum up if I may, and then we'll put it to the vote, and then if you wish to refer it, you can. I think Councillor Rapelli hit the nail on the head when he said residents want the skip scheme back. Indeed they do, and we're giving them the best possible skip scheme that we can. You can't give them exactly back what your party scrapped 11 years ago, because legislation has moved on, particularly on what kind of hazardous waste can be disposed of and how they're disposed of, etc. But we're giving them the best scheme because residents want the skip scheme back. They want the chance to be able to dispose not just the bulky items but all household waste that is not hazardous, free of charge, as near to where they live as possible. Reference was made to not being disabled friendly, but it's not disabled friendly to expect them to take heavy and bulky items to the tip, even if they're able to do so. If they're able to get in the queue and often have to pay for disposal of items when they get there. I'd remind you that your Conservative Party introduced tip charges, and 2 of the 3 of you actually voted for them. I didn't. So what we wish to do is give the residents what they want. We wish to reduce reduce fly tipping in the borough and improve recycling. And this borough, whether you like it or not, does have the 9th worst recycling record in the entire country, the worst in Hampshire. If other councils can do so much better, why can't Gosport? You refer to saying, well, we should spend the money instead on enforcement and education. Well, you've actually been doing that. You've made great play of it. You've been doing more enforcement. You've recruited more enforcement officers. You've prided yourself on more education. The fact is that despite that, we still have the 9th worst recycling record in Hampshire. Your policies have failed, and that is why we are going to try something new. On fly tipping, any of us representing wards like Forton, Brockhurst, Leeds, etc., and I would imagine even Peel Common and the leafy bits of Elmstead-Lee, there are fly tipping problems throughout the borough. Most of it is domestic waste. Officers will know I report 2 or 3 times a week around our area, Inverness Road, Brown Street, Council and Car Park, rubbish being dumped time after time after time after time. And we have officers who have to spend their time and taxpayers' money going out trying to identify the rubbish, almost exclusively failing to identify where it comes from, because most of the people who dump it don't leave their name and address within the rubbish sack. And then we have to send out the clean team as well to clear it, who do an excellent job in my view. But we should try and tackle the problem at base and try and encourage people more to dispose of their rubbish thoughtfully. Something which you claimed you tried to do, but which the records show you have failed to achieve. And that again is why we are trying something new. Now the new scheme may not be perfect, but we will try it, and if it doesn't work, then we will try something else. But we want to give residents the chance to clear rubbish as close to them and make it as easy as possible for them to do so. And the skips is actually only part of what we will be proposing, because linked in with that we will want to work with other waste authorities. For instance, the guys who collect waste metal, totally separate from the council, we'd like them as well. So if there are things we can't take, they can take. We as ward councils as well will often arrange our own litter picks around the area, collection schemes as well, everything to help people, and have a general clean-up day. 1 week in Forton, another week in Leeson, a week in Peel Common, and I look forward to Stephen with his litter picker and his little yellow jacket helping us there, etc. But make it a whole community clean-up. Make it easier for the community who have said to us repeatedly during the elections, which I remind you we won and you lost. They have said repeatedly they want a cleaner, greener Gosport, and we are determined to help make that happen. And this is one part of what will be an overall and developing policy to make it happen. I've said already we will review it after 6 months. If it works, brilliant, and I'm sure you will be the first to congratulate us. I look forward to seeing on your leaflets if you still produce them. If it doesn't work, we will try something else, but we are going to clean up this town, and we will link it in with greater enforcement as well, freeing up enforcement officers from checking the black bin bags that dumped out on a nightly basis around the borough, and the old fridges or whatever that are left in back ways. I could take you out now, I could take you to a dozen locations within an hour, and I will guarantee there will be rubbish dumped there. I'm forever photographing it and reporting it. So we want to get rid of as much of that as we can. We want to make it easy in these times of hardship that people can do it for free, whereas if they go to the tip, not only do they have to go there and book an appointment, but pay your Conservative tip charges. This will be a free scheme. It will help to recycle more. In time, we want to bring back things like the paper bags, which you scrapped. We want to make it easier for recycling. We want to introduce the doorstep recycling, which you said is coming. Well, you've been promising it for years, and you've never delivered. And I'd like to hope now that we will deliver on the things you have failed on. But we will give anything a try, and if some things don't work, we will try something else. But we're going to be imaginative and initiative, and we're going to get ahead and do things in a way that your administration never did. And I think that if you don't support this tonight, and if you refer it to full council and delay a free skip scheme, or the public will judge you, but of course they already have by throwing you out of the polls recently. I move the recommendations with one amendment, and that is to move 2 little c into 1. So there will now be a 1a, which is the 5 lines there, a 1b, which was 2 little c, because we want to get ahead with the procurement exercise as quickly as possible. And I give you my assurance, as 2 says, the final cost will come back, as will the funding for the scheme. If you wish to refer it, having lost, if you do lose the recommendation, you have, of course, the legal right to do so. Simply means we have to waste time calling another meeting at taxpayers' expense because you want to lay improvements for this town. That is your right to do so. I move the recommendation with the amendment. Those in favour, please show. That's 4 votes in favour. Those against, please show. That's 3 votes against. Do you wish to refer it to full council?
I do.
Right. The Conservatives wish today the scheme refer it to full council, as they have their right to do. And we will probably call it an extraordinary full council. There may be other schemes as well you wish to delay.
I would expect that from you.
Thank you. Good. Thank you for the compliment. Item 7 is car parking. Again, it says report to follow, but I think you've all got it now. This is delivering on another of the Liberal Democrat manifesto pledges, which was to bring back free short-stay car parking in Gosport Town Centre. We're proposing an hour-long free parking, and the cost of that, estimated by our offices, is around 28,650. I say around, it's remarkably precise figure, 28,651. As with everything else we're going to do, schemes have to be paid for. So we are proposing a slight increase in long stay charges in the town centre, which we hope will have the added benefit of discouraging people from outside Gosport driving here, clogging up our roads, clogging up our car parks to go and shop in Portsmouth, which is not what we want to encourage. We are not increasing charges in seafront and leisure car parks. Leisure car parks means places like the Elbe Valley. But we are looking to rationalise all the hours. Slightly surprised the Conservatives have never done that before, but we will do it now. It does mean, obviously, that an early morning dog walker at Lyon Solent may have to pay £1 that they didn't pay before. But frankly, if they can pay the increased fuel charges to drive down to the car park, they should pay for the maintenance, just like anyone else does. And if they don't want to pay it, well, walk Little Clyde an hour earlier. Or whatever. Everyone who uses our car parks should contribute towards the maintenance. So it's bringing the hours into line with those you already had in the town centre. I know from speaking already with a number of traders, they very much welcome this. I'll be absolutely honest, in an ideal world I'd scrap the car parking charges altogether. We did before, as you know, but we've been left with such a financial mess by the outgoing administration, 1.4 million per year budget deficit, that we simply cannot afford to scrap all car park charges at this stage. That remains, though, our long-term aim when we have sorted out the mess that you have left us. But this is aimed at bringing life back into our town centre, delivering on our manifesto pledge, helping to support traders and independent businesses, and again, it is the first of a package of measures that will be coming forward to achieve that. I'll take questions, if you don't mind, in the interest of time, I'll take questions and statements together. I'm sure Councillor Philpott will have some of both. Councillor Philpott.
Yes, I'm sure in the interest of time.